Hello and welcome. Hello and welcome. Never really sure when the YouTube video actually starts. So there we go. You can join there and hop on over to Zoom if you're watching live or if you're watching the recording. Check out the announcements that I make on the community tab on social media and on the email list. The email list is the best way to stay up to date because you're sure that you're going to get the message. And I'll show you how to join the email list in a moment. Because I'm traveling now, sometimes the announcements are a little bit last minute as I'm allowing for a lot of spontaneity at this time to accommodate for the flow of whatever may come here in India. And it's been great. I just came out of a meditation retreat and I'm going to share a video about that soon, probably tomorrow. So if that's something that you're curious about hearing, check it out. And also there was a video shared just yesterday. We did 2 streams this time to accommodate for the various time zones people are in. India's a little bit in the middle of it all. So maybe I'll try this at other times as well. The website is dantestarshine.com. Go here, type your email in, and you'll get up to date whenever sessions happen. And here you can find out about channeling sessions, the channeling course, mentorship, astrology readings, all of the different things I offer. And to support these sessions that are shared freely, hop over here. Booking a session is a great way to support. If you don't feel like you got all you need, but you want to share to cover the cost of Zoom and everything involved in making this possible, you can find many details here. I need to update that WhatsApp number. That's the second time I'm aware of that. I'm going to do that. So contact me some other way. And there's several channeled books that are available. The Guidebook to Living Love on Earth is the longest sort of encyclopedic book of some 400 pages, big pages, sharing the Pleiadian Council's view on all of life and creation, a really big metaphysical framework. And this book is more oriented towards abundance and self-worth, especially for those who struggle with that theme of feeling worthy and having the resources in their lives, and those trying to create a platform for themselves to thrive. I highly recommend checking this book out, and I might hint at there being more to come on the way. So if you're participating today, thanks for being here, first of all. And also, you can ask your questions live. You can type your questions into the YouTube chat box or the Zoom chat box, and somebody ought to read them. We prioritize the questions that are asked in the Zoom because there's a lot more content that can come and you can get way more out of it when the information is very clear. And if it's unclear, the Pleiadian Council is going to ask you clarification. And make sure you're muted when you're speaking. When you're not speaking, make sure you're unmuted when you're speaking, because that would be very difficult. We wouldn't hear you if you were muted when you were speaking. But background noise can become an issue. So I appreciate you doing that. And I'll see you on the other side. Hello, and we say a fantastic day to all of you at this moment of your time. We are the Pleiadian Council. We thank you for allowing this transmission to take place and to be received in your world, for it opens up a bridge between our realities that allows for both you and ourselves to expand into our deeper connection and knowledge of the one source. And that is our purpose. For this knowledge of self, knowledge of source, is why existence exists in the first place. And it is our purpose and your purpose alike. So today, this transmission we call Parallel Realities Me. And we would first like to introduce the idea of a brief meditation, visualization experience, if you will join us. You can close your eyes and take a deep breath in, filling your entire lungs, holding the breath for a moment, focusing your awareness in your heart as you do, and exhaling. Once again, taking a very deep breath in, visualizing a brilliant light from your heart this time that shines powerfully through your whole body, and exhaling. And one more time, breathing into the heart and exhaling, and allowing yourself to rest with your awareness in your heart. Picturing a brilliant light. And now bring your focus from your heart up to your third eye center, and allow this brilliant light to rise into the third eye. And for that point between the eyebrows to go brighter and brighter. Now imagining that this third eye becomes like a projector, that a light emanates from the third eye and can present on a screen before you images, visions that are relevant for you. And now we would like you to picture in front of you a very particular version of yourself. This is a version of yourself who is fully enlightened, as you say. A version of yourself that is totally equanimous, that is totally radiant, filled with bliss and non-attached. Picture this version of yourself in your present life scenario. Picture this version of yourself in the same reality, essentially, that you exist in, except on a parallel plane. Nothing in your life has changed except for the fact that this version of yourself is totally enlightened. Perhaps you visualize their psychic fields, seeing the aura that emanates from them, seeing that smile beaming from their face onto yours, seeing them stretch out their body in a proud, open way, emanating grace, grace. And allow this version of yourself to communicate with you what it is that they know and embody that you might not yet know and embody. Knowing that this version of yourself exists in a parallel plane of reality, and your imagination is a tool that allows you to have access to a wide variety of many parallel planes of reality, all existing simultaneously. Whatever you imagine, you create a connection with, and energy ripples back and forth between your reality and their reality. There are infinite versions of you, and this version of you has something very important for you. So open yourself to receive it. And now we want you to imagine shifting roles and become this version of yourself in that parallel reality looking back at you. See from their eyes the current version of you. And from their perspective, witness what is different between you and them. What does the supposed real you in this reality that you inhabit believe that the enlightened version of you in a reality that's exactly the same, other than the fact that this version of you is enlightened, experience? And no. Look back at yourself. And witness those negative beliefs or limiting ideas from this outside third person perspective, which happens to be your own perspective from another parallel reality. And experience the contrast between the two realities as a way of helping you narrowing the gap And now, if you wish, we'll taking a deep breath in, willingly choose to let go of those things that you're perceiving about your supposed present self, that from this experience of contrast, you no longer wish to experience. They're no longer your preference. And as you choose to let go of them with a deep exhale, perhaps a sigh out, shift back to your current perspective and now recognize in this moment, I am a different person in a different reality, having gone through this experience. I am a different person in a different reality, having gone through this experience. I am a different person in a different reality, having gone through this experience. And this is a phrase that we want you to carry with you through the rest of your day and the rest of your days. Because when you repeat this phrase and understand it and integrate it, you will witness that after every experience you have, you become someone new. After every experience that you have, you learn something about yourself that causes you to experience contrast. And if you have cultivated what you may call wisdom, you use that contrast to let go of a perspective, of a belief, of a behavior in that order generally. But while it seems to be sequential in that way, because everything is simultaneous, the fact is that when you change your actions, the beliefs automatically change. Whether you start with changing your perspective and your perception, or whether you start by changing your beliefs, inevitably, this will always change all of the others. And so we want to remind you of this phrase right now. I am a different person in a different reality because of that experience. And because, again, perspective will always shift your beliefs and will always shift your actions. Therefore, whenever you experience something challenging and unpleasant, you have that possibility of tuning in with a version of yourself in a different reality that is far more enlightened, far more equanimous, far more balanced, and creating this connection with them to witness them, and then again do a role reversal to witness yourself from their perspective. And with the slightest degree of this perspective shift, instantly you change without having to do anything. However, immediately following this, your actions will inevitably change. because they can't help but change once you've changed your perspective. You can also do this whenever you encounter a person that you find disagreeable in some way, or finds you disagreeable in some way. Create a connection with them, work with the energy of loving compassion for them, and then shift into their perspective and see yourself. And that contrast of quite literally putting yourself in their shoes and in their eyes and in their energy for a moment and focusing on yourself will give you the experience of understanding that will automatically change the dynamic of energy for you. Even if you don't agree with the way they see things, having had the experience of seeing things that way, you understand why their mind works the way it does. And therefore, this will drop away your resistance, giving you an understanding of their own willingness to change or not. Because again, you cannot change another who is unwilling to do so. But you can use this idea of perspective shift to continuously change yourself. And that's what we're encouraging you to do. There's many uses for this tool. We've said enough about it for this moment. We can also say that this tool can be used in conjunction with the tool that we have described yesterday about the love letter to yourself, including all of the loving actions that you intend to do day after day to step into this highest version of yourself. You can, after you write this letter or read this letter every day, connect with a version of yourself from the idea of a future or parallel timeline that already lives their life this way, and play this game of perspective shift, seeing their energy and watching their emanation, and then shifting perspectives and viewing yourself from their perspective and experiencing the contrasts in a state of acceptance for a moment, coming back to your own perspective, and then watching the automatic changes that take place in your experience after doing such a game. Have fun with it. Play with it. Use it in the ways that serve you. Adjust it to your own present reality and your own present ideas and beliefs so that it is more useful and acceptable for you. That you can fully trust in it more according to the way that you see things at the present moment. And always be open to adjusting it to the changes that you experience over time. We thank you for allowing us to share this with you. And yes, parallel realities and me. The idea of me is a limited perception of all of who you are. The sense of I, limited to this parallel reality, can often keep you constrained to not understand the full embodiment of who you are as a soul. So while you may know yourself in this present reality, always expand to open to the idea of the full range of potentials. There are versions of you that are totally enlightened. There are versions of you that have totally already died. There are versions of you that are out on the streets living their worst life in other realities. And therefore, whenever you witness outside of you people experiencing and expressing very contrasting realities, always remember there are versions of yourself that are experiencing something similar in a parallel reality, and therefore the gap is not as big as you think. And this will help you to stay in a state of more balance and more compassion for all of the experiences that you encounter. Our great thanks to you for allowing us to share this with you. And now we ask, how can we be of service with your questions, comments, musings, and inquiries, beginning whenever you would like to.
Hi, Pleiadians. I have
Hello.
a little bit of a curiosity question, and maybe it's not appropriate, but the exercise you suggested yesterday with writing that letter,
Yes.
I would absolutely love if you could perhaps just give us an idea of how you would write maybe the beginning of that letter if you were in our shoes.
Well, we would write it, first of all, by saying, today I embrace that I am the one source, and that source is love. And I will bring that love into my experience here and now. I will smile very brightly. I will, on this day, act on my highest excitement, as that is the clearest expression of love that I have access to. I will do it to the best of my ability, without insistence on any particular outcome, using the experiences of contrast as ways to transform my beliefs and to deepen into a state of balance and harmony. I will do all of the practices that help me embody that balance, harmony, and love. I will take care of my body in the way that suits me best, and I will be lovingly compassionate to all beings, remembering what excites me the most and dedicating as much as my time to it. And we would take that basic template and adjust it according to your own life, describing the practices that you know keep you in balance, describing the tools that you know keep you in balance, describing the ideas, the permission slips, the little reminders that you know keep you in balance, which again could be things like returning to your breath or returning to a mantra or certain ideas. And we would also highlight the challenges that we know we generally face and the remedies to such challenges as a way of reminding ourselves from the very start that we are capable of responding to the things that arise.
That was really cool. Thank you so much.
Yes.
Hello, Pleiadians.
Hello.
Thank you so much for this transmission and the opening message. It was a lot to process. I'm still trying to process. However, may I ask a very maybe basic question. As can shifting your point of view be used as a tool to clear out struggles or challenges or things that I'm struggling with now, as far as because I tend to be an overthinker. So how can you help me understand ways to get unstuck from that point of view and to shift into a different point of view, if that makes any sense?
Well, then you could imagine a version of yourself from a future parallel reality or a present parallel reality that is no longer an overthinker, and visualize them before you, visualizing their energy field and how they present themselves, and creating and establishing a connection with them. And once that a connection is established, practice the perspective shift. Imagine yourself in their perspective, looking back at you. And again, open yourself to the experience of contrast, witness the change, witness the differences, divergences. And this perspective shift alone can really serve to inform you as to how the experience of this parallel version of yourself is quite different, and how they have made these changes. If the perspective shift alone is not enough, you can also do another sort of meditation in which you engage with this parallel version of yourself for a period of time, establishing the connection and opening yourself to a dialogue in which you ask them, how did you move past this habit of overthinking? What changed in you? And what practices and ideas helped you to make such a shift so that I may do the same thing? And they will teach you or they will guide you.
Okay. Thank you for that. And for re-explaining that, may I ask a follow-up question?
Yes.
That so what if I have difficulty imagining what that looks like and I think that's where I struggle is I don't know, I get stuck with how to imagine how it could be different, how I could be different. And then kind of reverse engineering that, I realize that I'm not being very direct in how I communicate, because there must be some kind of fear that's based in that, and not being able to communicate directly. And I get caught up in limiting beliefs of that, if that makes sense.
Yes. Well, first we would say, in the idea of imagining something and not knowing what it might look like, just go with whatever presents itself and know that you can't imagine anything in the wrong way. Your imagination always presents exactly what you need to see at the moment in time that you need to see it. And over time, things will obviously continue to change. And as for the idea of communicating directly and the fear around it, you may have to question what might be the worst thing that happens if I communicate directly. And reflect on this question for a moment. Inevitably, after a short time, you will start to come up with scenarios. And once you come up with a few scenarios, then ask yourself, well, when did these experiences happen for? And then you will be brought back to the past experiences of trauma or challenge or conflict that have left imprints in your system. And then all you have to do is work with those imprints. Once you encounter those memories and those hypothetical situations that you create out of the memories, the flood of sensations connected to those experiences will present themselves in your body. And all you essentially have to do is meet those sensations with neutrality and with an open heart and love. Allow them to pass through you, disidentify from them, and disidentify from the imagination of the past and the future, realizing they are nothing but that, an imagination. They don't exist now because all that exists now is the present. And once you realize that there is only the eternal now, you can stop recreating the experiences from the past. So connect with those sensations in your body and perhaps the emotions that arise, and feel them without judging them, without resisting them. You might find it helpful to connect with the idea of the light of source and expand that light from your heart through your whole body, using that light to create a loving embrace of those sensations. Again, this isn't a means of pushing the sensations out, but it's the idea that when you hold all of those sensations and those experiences in that loving embrace, they will gradually dissolve. They will dissolve in the present, and some trace of them may remain in the future. But once you adjust your habit of greeting them in a different way, they will dissolve more and more, and they will no longer be present in your system at all. And as this process plays out, and there's no longer any fear present based on these past experiences, then you will be more present to the reality in each moment, and you will be able to respond directly rather than letting the fear bring you to lower your own sense of self-worth in that moment.
Yes.
Because again, that is directly connected with the idea of being indirect. Indirect implies that what I want, I might not deserve, and therefore I have to approach very lightly. But when this pattern is fully healed, you will fully embody the idea of worthiness and deserving. And without a doubt, as to those ideas of worthiness and deserving, you will be able to exactly state what you want, knowing that stating what you want and what you need is not the same as demanding it. And it will come as well with that state of non-attachment, knowing that if you don't get what you want or what you need in that moment, it doesn't mean that you don't deserve it. Because again, part of this pattern is a bit of avoidance of reinforcement. There are layers of negative belief that create the experience of not wanting to have the idea of not deserving reinforced. So approaching any theme that might bring up the idea of deserving very lightly, so as to avoid connecting with the idea that I don't deserve, because that's a painful idea. And sometimes connecting with that idea makes you feel vulnerable. And so actually what has to happen is a direct confrontation with the sensations, the emotions, memories connected with unworthiness. And as you embrace that with love, it will dissolve, and you will be able to own your worth, own your deserving, and stand for it.
Oh, thank you so much. It's so profound.
Oh, thanks to you, yes.
Thank you so much. I appreciate, so grateful for your,
Oh, yes.
your.
Oh, we're unconditional gratitude and love to you as well.
Hi, Pleiadians. I have a follow-up question again,
Right.
or maybe a rather comment. I found it so fascinating, the thing about thinking about different versions of ourselves, and when you mentioned that there are also versions of ourselves that are not doing as well as we feel we are currently, I realized I had never ever thought about that. I thought about all kinds of other scenarios where parallel versions of myself were doing far better, quote unquote. But I've never thought about the opposite, and that was quite an extraordinary feeling. Thinking, wow, well, I'm actually doing really, really well compared to the to other alternatives. So my question is that sort of a tricky or even dangerous ways of thinking in terms of, well, at least I'm not doing that bad, blah blah blah, or is it a positive thing to sometimes connect with that and go, okay, well, I'm actually doing really well.
When you find yourself lacking compassion for yourself or lacking a sense of accomplishment, it might be a useful tool to remind yourself of these more negative parallel realities so as to help you see the positives in your own life. You ought not to judge those parallel realities at all, because when you start to judge or condemn certain negative experiences, there is a mechanic of energy that will bring them back into your life.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. And I felt no judgment in that situation. It was more of a pure appreciation of what I do have now, compared to the alternative. So it was more of a comparison and not a judgment.
Yes.
Okay,
Yes, so
very beautiful. Did you have something to add?
no.
Okay. um, and the last thing is that also asking questions to that future self. I've done before where I've and also guided people to ask questions. What was the most important thing that that they or we learned from a current challenging experiences? But then when you said that, I thought, well, another question that could be very interesting is that asking why are you grateful that you went through this current challenge that we're experiencing right now? And that was really interesting because that gave a different answer and a different perspective. So thank you so much for that.
Oh, yes. Thanks to you as well. That can be a very useful thing as well, to cultivate that idea of gratitude towards negative experiences, because without those experiences, there wouldn't be a lesson. And when you see the value of that lesson and the ways that that lesson serves you in guaranteeing positive outcomes in many situations in the present and in the future, you will no longer experience any regret for situations of the so-called past.
Beautiful. Thank you.
Yes. And one way you can play with and expand this permission slip is to imagine if certain situations in your life that were nearly disastrous were totally disastrous. Connecting with a parallel version of yourself that experienced total disaster and seeing that magnified expression of that person, and particularly the version of yourself that had a magnified experience of disaster, but nonetheless rebalanced and integrated from it. Because again, with that experience of exaggeration, also the idea of the lessons gained from the experience will be exaggerated as well. And this can help to highlight these lessons and make them more prominent in your life. Simple version is perhaps you might have an experience of losing something important, like your phone or your passport, but then you found it. But then connect with a timeline in which you didn't find it. And the experience of going through such a challenge and rebalancing over a period of time made that version of you in that parallel reality become much more careful. And so by playing out the story of what could have happened if you really lost it at that moment, allows you to gain the idea of becoming much more mindful, much more careful in this reality without having the experience of losing.
I have a question, Pleiadians.
Yes.
Somewhat following up to my last question. Thank you so much. So in something I'm working through right now, there's a feeling of insecurity in a relationship. And would you advise that I communicate with this other person about it as I try to work through it, or to help me get a different perspective? Or is it shifting the perspective and feeling more secure and comfortable before discussing it with this person, if that makes any sense?
We would encourage you to do the perspective shift with this so as to gain an understanding as to whether or not this person is safe to become vulnerable with. Because remember that vulnerability in the right context becomes your greatest strength, but vulnerability in the wrong context allows you to be vulnerable, to be manipulated. And if you sense in this person any pattern of manipulation, of dominance, or control, then this person isn't really safe to talk about this with, because what you express might be used against you.
Okay.
And so in that case, working with somebody who's genuinely safe to express this idea with will serve much better. And you can even ask this person whether they feel they are capable or not. Just ask them to pretend they are the person that you want to speak with at that time. If they are open to the idea of channeling, you ask them to channel that person. If they are not, simply tell them to act, because the difference between acting and channeling isn't that drastic in certain contexts. So ask for them to act as if they are that person and have the interaction with that person through proxy so that it is genuinely safe.
Okay. So a bit of role playing a little bit to see how it might be able to play a possible way of playing it out, or working through it, processing it.
Yes.
Okay. So I think what I'm struggling with is this person. I have a lot of value for this person in this relationship, and I have fear of, I think, a lot. I'm not sure how much to be vulnerable, I think.
Yes.
And so again, role playing with someone else first would be the advisable way before communicating directly with this person.
This might be useful again if you play it out in your imagination and see yourself in a vulnerable perspective from their perspective, imagining yourself expressing that vulnerable idea from the other person's shoes, from their eyes.
Okay.
And sensing, is this person really safe? How do they really perceive me? Because again, your resistance in some times is not just based on some idea of negative beliefs in your perspective, Sometimes resistance is a protective strategy to keep you from opening up to people who might manipulate or control you or use it against you later. And no matter how much you value this person, it's important to assess. After you've made the assessment, you may play this out in a role play, using the idea of both that internal experience of playing it out and that role play experience of playing it out to develop the idea of confidence, to become more secure in what you need to express. And then you might find that when you finally come to express it to this person, you're no longer expressing the idea of an insecurity, but more so you're expressing the idea of a desire, of a curiosity. And that becomes very different, and it makes you less vulnerable in the negative way.
Okay. Thank you for putting that into perspective for me.
Yes.
My gratitude. Thank you so much for
Oh,
helping
thanks to
me
you as well.
guide through that.
Hi, Pleiadians. I have a final follow-up question to something that you mentioned earlier. The thing about a sense of value and worth. And before I got to know about you and other channel material, I always thought that any type of self-worth or value was directly related to how much value I helped create for other people. And now I know that, okay, that isn't so, and we all have it innate. And so I had this experience the other day. I had shared a song I recently wrote about transforming grief. And that person responded back that she thought it was the most important song ever, and she felt it had changed her life. And that made me feel really good that I had done something that I absolutely love to do, which is writing songs, and it provided that much value to one person. And so I thought, okay, maybe that's going to feel even better if 1,000 people have listened to it, or 1,000,000, who knows? And so my question is there an ideal way of looking at the value we can create for other people, whether as a permission tool to feel even better, or as a motivational tool, or any other thing? I would really love your feedback on that.
Well, we remind you that if you've served even just one person, you've opened in a much greater way to source, to that idea of unconditional love, to that idea of purpose, and therefore it is already fulfilled. And so the idea of expanding that then comes from a sense of unconditional service. And we must remind you in this context, when the idea of serving others has the hidden motivation of serving yourself to reinforce the idea of a positive ego state, it actually limits the full reach of your potential. And that is why the idea of selfless service opens you up to the greatest potential, because without the need for positive reinforcement, in the idea of becoming a pure, open, unconditional channel, recognizing that when you open to unconditional love and service, you reach those you need to reach, and that is enough. Then what you do will ripple out and have a much more powerful impact. And you can then ask for others who feel so impacted to share this with people they feel like might need it. And gradually over time, this idea of service expands, reaching more and more and more people. And this ripple is much like pouring water on a surface. And one drop of water stays in place. And the idea is that the more unconditional you become in the idea of service, the more water flows through your vessel, reaching that surface. What was once a few drops becomes a massive puddle and eventually becomes an entire ocean.
Okay, great. That makes sense. That was sort of in the ballpark of the answer I was hoping for. So thank you so much.
Yes, sir. Thanks to you as well. All right. Then we think that will be a wondrous conclusion for today, unless there are any questions from the YouTube at this time.
No questions in the YouTube.
All right. Then a great thanks and unconditional love to you, and we wish you a fantastic rest of your day then. Okay, cool.
Wow, that went spectacularly well, if I might say so.
Oh, great. Yeah. I think that was really exciting and wonderful information, I hope.
Yeah,
That
that's a
was-
lot of how-tos for people to
Yeah.
literally use and change their lives. That's for sure.
Those
Yeah.
deep stuff, really deep stuff.
Wow.
And I thank you for letting me go very personal because it was not too many people in the room.
Absolutely.
So appreciate that.
That's just what it needed to be today. Yeah.
Thank
Yay.
And really powerful combination with the previous one and this one.
Yeah. I feel like there's a sort of series coming together or something like that. I don't really know. I just get the information. I don't know what it's supposed to amount to.
Into the early one, the earlier one this morning, you mean? The
Yeah.
earlier one yeah, I have to listen to that one.
Yeah.
And it was really cool. The beginning of that letter that they mentioned.
Yeah.
That was just so smoothly. I mean, that was really, really cool.
Yeah.
Because I wasn't sure if they were going to do that, but the way it just came out so beautiful and natural, that was awesome.
Was that part of the earlier transmission there about
Yeah.
writing a letter? Oh, okay. I'll have to go back and listen.
Mm.
Thank you again, Dante.
Welcome.
Yeah.
Thanks,
Excellent
everyone.
job, Dante.
Ciao. And
Ciao.
so, oh wait, let me reclaim the host for a moment or whatever. How do I do
Okay.
that? And yeah, just a reminder to those who may be watching on the replay that the live streams happen on a sporadic but regular basis. So staying informed about them is the best to do on the website, dantestarshine.com. Sign up for the email list. Make sure it doesn't go to your spam folder, and you'll get a regular update about when the transmissions happen, as well as some other goodies. Website has a lot of exciting things that you can take a look at. Channeling course, various channeling and healing sessions, 2 books, guidebooks, Living Love on Earth, Abundance Teachings, book a session, contact. And that also has information about how to contribute a donation if you have benefited from these live sessions and you want to support everything that goes into them. It's greatly appreciated. Thank you so much. And I hope to catch you soon on another transmission. So have a great day, everyone. Much love, many blessings, and we'll see you next time.
Dante. Bye.